Hi, I'm Tara, and welcome to Let's Do Books. Email me at tara@thelesbianreview.com with any questions or comments, or come join our Facebook group, The Lesbian Review Book Club. I'm excited because I'm joined today by Rebekah Weatherspoon. I've been a big fan of her books for a really long time, and her latest lesbian book, Soul to Keep, won a Lammy for LGBT erotica earlier this year. But Rebekah is here today to talk about other people's books with me. Authors are readers too, so I'm asking her about what books she loves. Welcome, Rebekah. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, what books do you want to tell our listeners about?
We talked about this a little bit before, but obviously we'll let all the listeners know. The last 2 to 3 years, I've been writing a lot, and I haven't had as much time to read as I would like. So I've just been buying books and buying books and buying books, and I haven't had a chance to read them. But I have a couple oldies and goodies that we can talk about, and then I have a few that are on my to-read list that I would love to share with you guys.
That sounds awesome. So what is the first book you want to tell people about?
So I feel like if we're doing throwbacks, I would definitely like to start with 13 Hours by Meghan O'Brien.
Yeah.
I feel like 13 Hours is one of the first Lesfics that I read. It's about kind of like an uptight corporate businesswoman who gets sent a strippergram but then ends up getting trapped in the elevator with the stripper. And it's really funny and really sexy. And Meghan is very, very good at writing sexy books that are light. I think that's hard to do as a writer and a reader. I've read a lot of sexy books that are kind of heavy and really like emotionally wrought, and everyone is like kind of destroyed and everyone's like miserable. But Meghan does a really good job of writing about normal people who are kind of going through normal everyday angst, like just, being stressed out from work or being overworked or having a lot on their plate, and showing how a positive sexual relationship can bring a little levity to their day. And 13 Hours is kind of like the perfect example of that.
That scene in the elevator, I think at this point, like, it just feels like it's iconic for lesbian erotic romance. Because I love how it goes from this totally antagonistic in the first hour to by the end of those 13 hours, like, there's something really there.
Yeah, it's very... First of all, it's like an interesting take on the forced proximity trope.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when people think of the forced proximity trope, they think like trapped in a cabin or like trapped in some sort of like locale where people think about being trapped. But I had to just write a forced proximity book, and I didn't like thinking of putting people in an elevator, like wouldn't even occur to me. So I think it was very brave of her to write a full-length novel about people being stuck in an office building. Like that in and of itself was a very bold undertaking.
Yeah, you can't go to the bathroom. You don't have access to extra food.
And also just like someone like me who, like, I sometimes have trouble, like Idris Elba and Kate Winslet have this new movie coming up where their like plane crashes in like the wilderness or something, and it's snowing, and I can't watch it because movies like that, where there's like a lot of snow, I get cold when I'm watching it. So for Meghan to write a book where people are trapped in an elevator and I'm claustrophobic, but it didn't feel claustrophobic when I was reading it, she really pulled that off really well.
Okay, that's pretty good. What is the next book you'd want to talk about?
The next book, this is something you should know about me. I kind of rank books on how I like them based on more so like overall how they made me feel and small details, but I also have the memory of like 112-year-old man. So like I will remember like really weird specific details, but then if you're like, oh, what happened with this? I'll be like, I don't know. So this is one of those books where I don't remember every single detail, but I remember finishing the book and it just made me feel so good. The book is Awake Unto Me by Kathleen Knowles. And I went back and looked at the blurb and was hoping for the exact year, but I don't think it's there. It's about two nurses in San Francisco, like in the Bay Area. I believe. Okay, I was like way off when I was talking to you before. I thought it was set in 1917 and it's totally set in 1888. So I was way off there, but whatever.
Yeah.
1888 feels like a good year.
Sure, why not?
I feel like everyone should read this book. This book is like a warm hug. It's such a soothing book. The two characters are just, they're so nice and they're nice to each other. And obviously it's 1888. And so the social norms for sexuality are obviously going to be different than they are today. But they both are figuring out that they have feelings for each other. Sex scenes aren't like explicit or anything. They're pretty fade to black, but they are very honest and open in this like really beautiful way about not just like, oh, I like this person and I want to like hold hands with them and show them my ankle, but they're very like, no, we like each other, and then the natural progression for this relationship is for us to be physically intimate with each other in this way that's like not salacious. And I really, really enjoyed that. It was like really beautiful, very well done. Yeah, Kathleen knows what she's doing. I recommend this book to a lot of people, especially if they're either like new to Lesfic or if they just like need a very calming change of pace. This is a really good one.
So it's a good one for everybody to read right now.
Yeah, yes, actually, this is a great book for people to read right now. Like really right now. If you have a hurricane coming towards you, or your house is on fire, or your government sucks, or they're burning people in nearby villages because the world is curry balls right now, this is a good book to hunker down with.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. So this, for the people listening, we're recording this early September, but I cannot imagine that the world is going to be a whole lot better by the time this episode comes out. So definitely pick this one up. All right, what is the last book you want to tell people that you loved?
Okay, so I try to like leave Colette Moody alone online. It's hard. She has a life of her own. She's a very busy woman. If I could bother her every day about when she's going to put out a new book, I would. But I understand how life goes. Colette's out here living her life. Colette, if you're listening, oh my god, I love you. Write a book.
She is writing again.
I heard that, but I was like, let me just, you know how these things go. I can't get excited until the book is actually out.
Okay, good point. Good point. But she joined us for a Facebook group chat and was asked about that, and she said that she's back at it. So hopefully.
That makes me very happy. Because I asked her a while ago, and she said that she had something brewing, and I was like, let me leave this poor woman alone, because I know how it goes when you're a writer and you're trying to write something and people are like all up in your shit. So like I love all of Colette's books. This isn't the one I'm going to talk about, but if you are in the need for like a light take on politics, definitely read Parties in Congress. Yes. I know a lot of people who are very politically minded, not that we all aren't, but people who actually like enjoy politics and enjoy following politics. Parties in Congress is hilarious and a very positive spin on politics. But that's not the book I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Sublime and Spirited Voyage of Original Sin.
Which is such a good book. That was one of our book club books a couple months ago, and it's so much fun. So you can talk about this book with as many spoilers as you like.
Okay, so this is where my memory is a sieve once again, because I read this a while ago. But the feeling I had when I read it stayed with me for or five ever. It is very hard to write humor. It's also very hard to write action. And Colette managed to weave so much humor into this book, along with the action, that it was just such an enjoyable reading experience. I think I'm gonna reread it. I have like no time to do anything, but I actually like really just like want to reread this for the joy of it all. I love pirates. I love pirates so much. I love pirates so much that I got stars just to watch Black Sails.
Uh-huh.
I tapped out because there was like too much rape, but if you ever have one of those books that you've been kind of waiting for, this is one of those books where it was like lesbians and pirates. Like, I don't know that it gets
Yeah.
much better than that. And
And
when I've recommended this book to people, they've been like, "Wait, did you just say lesbian pirates?" And
yeah.
it's like you've announced every holiday at once when they hear the words lesbian pirates.
And like I've read some other ones too, and I still think it's the best one.
I agree. I think this is my favorite of her books. Party in Congress is probably second, but this is my favorite of her books.
I have a soft spot for Seduction of Moxie too, I have to admit, because I mean I like a lot of old Hollywood and I really like screwball comedies, and so reading a book that basically is exactly that and is also like filthy with the humor in a way that screwball comedies weren't. All of her books have made me laugh until I cried. Like I was weeping with each book because I was laughing so hard.
Also, like her books are they're so well researched, but they're just so well done. She is really good at transporting you to a place. Seduction of Moxie was
Yes.
great for that. Like I felt like I was transported to a place. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also very hard to do. Colette's she's like a master wordsmith, but
And no info dumping.
oh, and none. No, she totally just sucks you in, and you're not. There's no info dumping. It's just she's taking you on this adventure, and I mean, she's amazing. Now I really want to reread this book because it's so good. But yeah,
Right.
so that's one where it's kind of like if you are in the mood for just a damn good time, that's a book you should be reading.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. So, what are the books that you're excited to read? Because you said you have some on your to be read list that you want to share.
Yeah, so my to be read list is absolutely ridiculous. I have my Kindle is like overflowing. I just moved and the boxes of books I packed up was just like ridiculous. I have a lot, almost half the books that I moved I haven't read yet. I just bought them and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read these.
Uh huh.
I have a lot of books that I need to read. Hopefully, I get to maybe a fifth of them at some point. So the first one I want to read is by Shira Glassman. Shira is just awesome. I've run into her on Twitter, and she's just a great member of not only like the literary community, but you know the queer literary community. She's cool chick. She has a novella out called Knit One Girl Two, a sweet Jewish FF contemporary romance.
It's super cute.
Have you read it?
I've read it. Speaking of books that are like a warm hug that you want to read when the world is garbage, that book is really sweet. I definitely recommend it.
I am a sucker for pun titles. So if you're gonna put out a book with a pun title, like I'm totally there.
Yeah.
And the cover is just like so cute, and I'm a big fan of covers where, especially with like queer lit, like where people are kissing, and she's got two cute girls on the cover kissing. It's like such a cute cover.
And they're not both like teeny tiny skinny girls.
Yes, and she's good at promoting like plus size girls and brown girls and Jewish girls. Like she's just all about the inclusivity, and I am here for it. So I'm really excited to. I'm excited to read all of her books. I have like all of them, but this one's like at the top of my TBR.
And for people listening, it's really, really reasonably priced too.
Yeah, I think it's
like
like $1.99 somewhere.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So if you only have a few dollars and you're looking for a book, that's a great one to pick up.
Yeah, and she has a bunch of other ones that are perfectly reasonably priced. And she has a bunch of books out there, so by all means, get in there. The next one that I've been meaning to read, I know people are going to be like, oh my god, you have not read that yet. Ascension. I'm going to butcher her last name, Jacqueline. I'm so sorry. I'm like awful at pronunciation. I can barely read. By Jacqueline Koyanagi. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this book. There's a black woman on the cover with dreadlocks, and she's like inside a spaceship, and has like a mech suit on, and it's just amazing. Space opera with queer women of color, like that's pretty much up there with lesbian pirates for me.
I've never heard of this, but if she happens to listen to this episode, please submit it to the Lesbian Review, because we would love to check that out.
It's not super old, but it came out in 2013, and I've had it on my TBR forever, and I've heard such amazing things about it. I mean, lesbians in space, I feel like is actually like up there with lesbian pirates.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of it. There's some, and there's some really good.
I want to write lesbians in space one day. I gotta put it on my to-do list.
Yeah, do it. Which is almost as long as your to-be-read list.
If I could have more of anything, it would be lesbians in space and lesbian pirates. Like, those are the two things that I'm like, okay, more lesbians in space, more lesbians.
Also, lesbian pirates in space.
Saying, oh, lesbian pirates in space is actually, like, the ultimate. If you can pull off lesbian pirates in space,
right?
I'd find you and marry you. That's but yeah, I've heard rave things about this book. It's like a girl gang in space. Like, I am just all about this. And I think there's a sentient spaceship too. So it all just sounds really cool. So that's also near the top of my list. And Dahlia Adler, she is also just kind of a really awesome. Oh, sorry, this is the last book I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
She is also like an amazing member of the queer lit community. She has a bunch of books out, but she has a new adult trilogy, and the first book is Last Will and Testament. I believe that's an FM book, but the third book in it is Out on Good Behavior, and that's an FF book. I want to read all three, and I like reading books in order. Yeah. So by all means, these are different couples, I believe, so I'm sure you can jump around, but Out on Good Behavior is the FF title in it, and I've had this on my TBR forever. I have the paperback looking at me right now saying, let's do this. I don't know, people are kind of weird about new adult books. I like them. I think if they're done well, I like reading because I like YA, but I have to be in the mood for YA, mostly because YA is written for teenagers, which should be. I read Everything by Nicola Yoon, which I enjoyed very much, but it was very much, it was, the 16-year-old in me was like, this is a great book, but if I'm in a very, like, adult mind space, like, I'd rather read about adults. YA peeps, I love you, you're doing good work for the kids. But I like new adult because I think, especially for millennials like myself, a lot of us are kind of stuck in that weird college phase because the economy changed so much when we were in college. So we were kind of like the last group to come out of college and university, and like the world was completely different for us. So I think a lot of millennials, even if they're as old as 35 or 36, are stuck in this weird limbo position where we're like not like our parents, in the sense that we're like not settled down and do not have our shit together at all, but are not, obviously we're not teenagers anymore.
I think the thing that I like about New Adult is that it's finally acknowledging that coming of ages don't happen in high school.
Yes.
Like, so many of the coming of age stories are set in high school, especially if, like, I was a little kid in the 80s and going back and watching 80s movies, and it's all these coming of age stories set in high school. And that totally wasn't my experience. My experience was that it was in my 20s. And even, like, I only got my stuff sorted out, like, mid to late 20s. So reading about high schoolers figuring out their whole life just didn't feel like I couldn't connect with that. And even now, like, as I'm getting closer to 40, it's got to be a really special book for me to want to read about teenagers. Like, I'm thinking of it more in terms of, am I going to want to read this with my kids when they're a little older?
Right.
But New Adult, I feel like I can still connect with those stories.
Right. I mean, I think, again, I like YA a lot. I think it just depends on the book. And also just depends on, like, what mood I'm in. I mean, I read the crap out of Twilight, and that's totally YA. I have like literally all of Melinda Lowe's books on my TBR too, and she writes YA FF as well. Yeah, no, it totally just depends on like what kind of mood I'm in. But yeah, for me, For me, new adult, I think the difference between sometimes why YA doesn't always work for me is in new adult, it like kind of makes sense for the protagonists to like be separated from their parents a little bit. Sometimes I read YA and the absence of the parents in some situations is like really weird because I'm like, I'm like almost 35 and my mom is still like all up in my Kool-Aid. So like I can't imagine being like 15 or 16 and my parents being like, oh yeah, like just not. I mean, and I'm not saying that there's not absentee parents. All you kids out there who have absentee parents, I am like sending you a hug. Absentee parents are legit. It's just weird when you read like a lot of YAs and there's absentee parents and you're like, what? I think that's why everything worked for me. It's not an FF book, sorry. Because the mom was active in the book. Like the mom was like part of the core like bit of the story.
Yeah.
That's why new adult kind of works because you can remove the parents in a way where it's like they're the person's at college, so their parents aren't like sitting right there looking over their shoulder. But Out on Good Behavior has to me like kind of an interesting setup, especially now. One of the heroines is the daughter of a Republican mayor. And I feel like that setup in and of itself, especially like in 2017, is very, very interesting, especially when you have politicians nowadays with the way the world is who have like biracial kids or like queer kids or Jewish kids and they're out here like doing their weird political thing and it's like, are you like looking at your own family? So I really want to check out this book. But yeah, so that's my TBR list.
That's pretty great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's all for this episode. Thank you, Rebekah, so much for joining me. Where can people find you online if they want to connect with you?
The best place to find me is on Twitter. It's r.spoon. I'll spell it RDOTSPOON. A little play on Hamilton there. I'm on Twitter all the time. You can also find me on Instagram at just Rebekah Weatherspoon. You might catch me once a week on Facebook. I'm just not that good at Facebook, but Twitter is the place where you're most likely to find me. And my website is RebekahWeatherspoon.com.
Yeah, that's it. I'm Tara. You've been listening to Les Do Books. Don't forget to email tara@thelesbianreview.com with your questions and comments, or join our Facebook group, The Lesbian Review Book Club, to talk about these books and anything else you're reading and loving. You can also find me and all the other podcasters on the Lesbian Talk Show channel at our Facebook group, the Lesbian Talk Show chat group. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate this show and subscribe. And to find this and many other shows, all you need to do is search for the Lesbian Talk Show on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. That's it!
Yay!
Yay!